Hey, what's up? I'm Wes and I'm here at Hairstory Studio today and I am with Miss Emily. And we are gonna go ahead and do a haircut today. It's gonna be kind of in that Alexa Chung kind of French girl family. Emily's a little nervous, so send her a little bit of love. Okay, cool, let's get started. We have started with her natural part leading into center, going back. Emily has like medium density hair, so I can go a little bit higher than the occipital bone. If she had a lot of hair, I wouldn't take quite as much, but with the razor, I'm always just looking to see how much I can control down here. So if I had a smaller section of hair, I actually don't feel like I would have as much control, so I can go ahead and take a little bit of a larger section than what I normally would, maybe with a scissor. So I'm starting out, I have my center section, then I'm gonna work from the right to the left. So right now I have my razor. I'm looking to kind of start with a little bit of a stronger line. So to be kind of the anti-shred, if you will, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm coming in and I'm tilted. By tilting the blade, what I'm doing is I'm really making sure that I'm hitting on the sharpest point. And you can see with Emily what I've done is I've taken kind of more of a medium stroke, because I'm looking to kind of just define this first line. So I'm looking through here and I'm pulling this out in my first section. I'm looking for the places where there are density. So the dark spots are really indicators to me that I could actually go in and release a little bit of weight. My goal with this haircut is to release enough weight that it's a little sexy French girl vibes. And that, when I think about that, I think about movement. And I think about things kind of looking like they just naturally kind of happen. So I'm going to encourage that by making sure that I've released enough weight along the way. So I'm moving on to my next section on this side. And I'm going to drop slightly lower. The reason why is because I don't want to cut into my previous section. And I also don't want to be building out too much weight. So hair on top of hair will build out, and that's something that you need to think about. So maybe if she had finer hair, maybe I'd want to be building on top of it, because maybe I'd want that build out. But I don't really want that today, so I'm just gonna go through and drop section by section, just a little bit lower. And you can see I'm going through looking for those little dark places where something feels a little too solid in the section, because I really want to get some movement in here. And you can see here, this is just a little touch longer. So I'm going to go through and kind of nip that guy off. And I am looking for a slightly erratic shape at the ends in my line. But if something's really off, you have to ask yourself, is it off and interesting, or is it just off? So it's the same motion, just dropping a little bit lower each section. So I'm right at the top here. And you'll notice with these, what I kind of call my last sections in the back, that's not really meaning that I'm completely done with the back, but what that means is it's my last section before I move to transitioning into the side. So I'm just grabbing that. I tilt my hands out, see the angle of the blade. By tilting this out, and you can do this pretty easily with longer hair, you really are able to stay on the sharpest point of the blade. That's what's really gonna allow this not to get kind of like fuzzy looking. I think that's what's really important, is understanding that these techniques are really just designed for you to understand the effects that you're gonna get from applying them. So once you understand them, then you can break those rules if you want to. So now we're gonna move into transitioning. So what I'm doing is I like to lay my comb flat and run it just to the top here. So it's really kind of starting a slightly higher and then transitioning down. And I can handle all of that hair. If her hair was denser, I would need to move this section a little bit lower. Now I'm continuing as I move along with this same technique all along the back. Working this up and down on the sharpest point of the blade. Anytime where I feel like I can't have enough tension between my two fingers like this, then what I like to do is I like to see where that is, then I like to grab it, because I'm gonna have more tension between those two fingers grabbing it. And tension is really crucial whenever you're working with a razor, because what you wanna think about is that with your razor, it's so important that you get that strong line a little bit, because if you don't have the tension, you're not gonna get something that can cut as firm. So tension's really, really important. And I'm directing all of this back and checking it like this. So for Emily, she had a previous like framing, so we don't actually even have a corner here. It's really kind of square. But because I am over directing all of this back, when it swings forward, there will be like a slight angle. You could choose to keep that angle in certain situations. When I swing it around, I'm actually gonna cut that kind of what we would call an angle or a tag off. And then I'm gonna bring the rest of everything down, and then I'm just looking to see if there's any little bits. So you can see we've got some little bits here, and those guys have got to go. And this is kind of that perfect place to kind of like pinch and kind of cut. So now I'm going to move to the other side. So we're transitioning on this side. Remember, it's a little bit higher. Moving up top. Then we're going to start working from the center out. So I'm feeling like it's a little dense here too. So I'm just gonna take this time to go in and release a little bit of that weight. Now I'm gonna go, this is my in front of the ear section. I'm directing this back. I do have a little bit of an overhang here. So I'm just gonna get that guy off there. So when you're taking out weight, you can do it in a couple different, not really so much a couple different ways, but what I would have you think about is where to do it during the process. So because I've been doing this a while, I can kind of mix this all up. Some people like to release weight, then cut the line. Some people like to cut the line, release some weight as they move along. Other times you can go ahead and you can actually cut this entire perimeter line and then go back through and angle them all out like this and remove the weight. It's whatever's gonna work best for you, for your process. So you can see we kind of have these just little overhangs. These are just the guys that like are little stragglers. She's got some layering probably, so from within this section, this is really all we have left of the perimeter. But I do want to make sure that I get those little guys. And then I just like to check, because oftentimes what I find is like on this side, you usually kind of have a slight tilt, so there's usually just a little angle there. So I just kind of like to check and make sure that it's kind of nice and square. So we're here and we're at the front now. So this is a good time for me to create my framing. So what I like to do is I like to go right in front of the ear. So this little panel. And I've also kind of gotten rid of what I'm going to use as my kind of like bangy type section. So I know what's going to kind of fit there versus what needs to fit here. So usually there's kind of this little pie shape here, and then we have this one going down here. Then I like to comb it nice and flat from the root down. I'm working my way down. Then my second section is also going to be part of my framing, which is just slightly behind the ear as well. And I'm thinking about where I landed on the very end of that section, and I'm starting that as my top neck section. And I'm also thinking about knocking off these little tags. Once again, I'm going to start by removing what's going to be part of my bang section. So I have a good, clear roadmap. Tilt. I grab all of this, so I have this tension here. Knocking all that out of the way. Go through, get rid of any of these little tags that are here. Remember we talked about the tags previously, about how it was by over directing that back, we create those little tags. So I need to just make sure that I nip those off. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring the bangs into this. So I'm looking for the bangs to hit about here whenever they jump up. So I'm actually gonna drop a little bit lower. This is a very easy, manageable section for me. So I'm actually going through. That's where I want it to be. So I'm gonna drop a little bit lower. And I'm gonna slightly angle this just so we're flowing, we get a more dramatic curtain bang, if you will. It was a big deal for Emily to get curtain bangs when we first started, so. Now this one feels a little bit deeper to me, so I feel like I need to get a little bit more of a subsection going here. So I'm looking at where I want that to land. Now, even though I have section on this side, I'm coming back over to this side because I find it easier to work this way than work this way whenever I'm creating something that's going from shorter to longer. Now I can bring my little guy into here because I feel like I have a little more control. So I'm just starting my layering, and I'm just starting with a center section. You can call it a mohawk section, you can call it whatever you want, but it's in the center. So I have this as my center section, and I'm thinking like, where is this gonna land that it's gonna be the best? We're gonna keep this a little bit on the long-ish side for Emily. If I was doing something more rock and roll, I would move it higher. I'm looking for a place in between. I'm not looking for like long layers because I'm not trying to be like super basic on this haircut, but what I do want to do is make sure that it doesn't land in a space where it's kind of uncomfortable for her, and I don't want that to feel like too rocker chick because she's not a rocker chick. So in my mind, I'm imagining that this is going to go from shorter to longer. So I'm going to work in that direction. And I'm actually going to be very broad with my strokes. The reason why is because if I'm very tight with my strokes and I make this kind of precise little line in here, the layers won't be diffused. So you see that stroke was a little bit broader. And by diffusion, what I mean is this. I mean that if she takes a round brush to this, it's going to be perfect. But if she lets it air dry, she's not going to have those shelves. And that's what's really, really important to me, that this can actually like live in both worlds. Because she may want to take a round brush to it. I don't know. Now I'm going all the way down with my center section and I'm going to connect the rest. So much like the framing that we did in the front, the last ending piece becomes where you want to start for your next section. So it's continuously going up like this. Now I'm going to take a small bit of this. So I'm taking this halfway. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my sectioning for the side. So I'm kind of laying my comb flat and I'm following the curve of the head. So this is what's left out. Then before I reach the back, so just slightly before there, and I'm grabbing all of this and we're gonna see if this is gonna, so I'm just dealing with a little bit here. Now I'm taking this section and I'm going all the way down. I want to make sure that everything is really, really consistent from roots to ends. So when you see me kind of scooping in the hair at the bottom, it's because I'm not looking for a little wrinkle. Now, grabbing this, connecting those. And you can see we're starting to kind of release this weight and get like some cool movement out of it. So it's going to be less heavy, a little cooler. Awesome. So you'll notice me kind of shake things out and kind of check the texture. Whenever you're working with a haircut, that's awesome to do. But what I think is really important is to make sure that that doesn't throw off your, what I would call your roadmap. That's what I consider this sectioning to be, is just your little roadmap. So shake it out, look at the texture, see how it's all performing. But at the end of the day, you know, if you need to kind of comb everything out and start with a clean palette, that's what I would do. Once again, see these roots? They're not all flowing with me, so I'm just really making sure that they're all over directed and I really have control over this section. And if I feel like I don't have control over this section, then what I want to do is I just want to make sure that I either take a smaller section or that I'm going in and doing my prep work to make sure that we're really dealing with something that's very consistent from roots to ends from a tension perspective. Now, because I'm going from shorter to longer, even though I'm sectioning on this side, I need to come over to cut it on this side because the angle of the blade has to come from here. So I'm always kind of working on that side. I'm gonna grab a little tiny section. And remember whenever you're doing these layers with the razor, kind of the same way that we did the bottom, how we had dropped out section by section just slightly longer, it is the same thing. You want to make sure that when you're doing the layering, even though I'm bringing in this previous section as my reference, I'm actually going to be cutting above that. So that's really, really important because you don't want to cut into your previous section because that's going to make things shorter. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get Emily dry. And what this is, I'm just re-wetting this. This is just a little mixture of water and a little bit of hair balm. I like to kind of mix those two. Now I'm going through, because I'm applying heat, I'm gonna start with the dressed up. This is gonna be really like lightweight. It's almost gonna feel like nothing in the hair, but I just know that I need a little bit of protection. So I'm going in the opposite direction of what her hair will naturally want to do on the top. So this side naturally loves to go this direction. So because I'm looking for a little bit more lift and movement, I'm actually taking it to the opposite direction, because once this kind of gets heated up and kind of cools in that direction, it's gonna act like a little springboard to create more volume. This is my pre-dry, so this is where I'm taking out most of the moisture, but I also wanna take this time to start building in a shape. It's just not getting the hair completely, like, it's not just about getting the moisture out, it's kind of helping me to build the shape. Now I'm gonna do it this side. So I'm scooping it up and directing it over. Scooping up, directing it over. What I like to do is I like to take a carbon comb. It needs to be carbon because I am going to be using my blow dryer on a high heat. High heat is what's going to, it can melt things. So carbon will not melt. So nobody wants to melt the comb, right? So I'm taking it in like this, so it comes in. Then I lay it flat and I turn it over. So I'm essentially scooping the hair in, churning it like this. See how that smooths that hairline out? That is crucial. And what I find is that people don't actually have, there's not enough hair typically to wrap around the round brush. So this creates more tension. So it's not actually getting any of the tension from the brush itself. So this is one of those things where you can just create the tension from this comb. So I'm taking my bangs and I'm pulling everything forward and then swooping it back. I take my section from in front of the ear and incorporate it into a larger section from right behind the ear. I'm using my Mason Pearson and I'm actually smoothing everything out. But what I like to do is twist at this point and twist again. This is kind of a little bit of a leaner bit of movement. I'm taking my front section, but also I'm grabbing behind the ear. And the great thing about this is I don't have to worry about the edges, the hairline being smooth, because it's already smooth because I took care of that in the beginning with my carbon comb. Now what I'm gonna do is I wanna kind of like break all of this apart. So this is actually on cool air and low speed. This just kind of helps me break all of this apart. I'm just trying to kind of encourage some movement. So I'm trying to encourage that by just kind of like, once I've broken it apart, I'll take sections and kind of like wad them up into little balls. Now I'm gonna go through and kind of refine little bits. So what I like to do is I like to just, generally check, see if things are kind of in balance, not necessarily even, but balanced. And then, so if there's a little tag, then I'll nip that guy off. And then I also am looking through and I'm checking about a little bit of weight. I find that oftentimes at the bottom, I still have a little bit of weight that I need to kind of remove and loosen up You see how that's starting to feel a little bit better just by kind of getting rid of some of that. So I'm going in and I am talking my shears down. What talking your shears down means is that you're going to come in and you're moving your thumb and you're gently working your way down to release the weight, as opposed to slide cutting, which might rip the cuticle of the hair. So that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for something that feels a little bit shredded, but I do want to release a little bit of weight. I also check my bangs. I like to make sure that, like, if there's any little weak bits, I can nip them off at this time. I can also release any bit of weight that I need to release from those guys. Everything's looking pretty cool to me. It's like in the family of what I want. And now I can go ahead and start to encourage a little bit more of the naturalness to come out in the hair by using the undressed. Undressed is like my super go-to. So I'm really applying this generously from the bottom onto the top. This product is cool because, like, I used to use a lot of salt or beachy type sprays, and that was awesome for me as a stylist because I was like, oh, it's a cool effect, it's awesome. The only thing is from a client perspective, they were like, it always feels dry when you do that. So this is cool because I get what I'm looking for, which is that kind of cool lived-in texture, this kind of undone version of hair, but it's really soft to the touch. Like, it's really soft. So I don't feel like you feel like you're compromising. So you get the cool look, but you also get really soft hair. And you can wear it for more days because you don't have all that kind of gritty, rough texture too. So you can kind of live in this for a while, as opposed to feeling like, oh, it's a commitment and I have to wash my hair tonight. So just really shaking it out. And then what I like to do is I like to kind of encourage things even more by kind of going through, grabbing and squeezing, moving things in different directions. Even with the bangs, I like to kind of do one of these little numbers sometimes. I saw Jane Ito do it, so I ripped her off. Thanks, Jane. Awesome. We're talking about French curl haircuts today. We're talking about using it with a razor, and I think it looks pretty awesome. And if you want to see more haircuts, more colors, more styles, then subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions, then just comment below. Cool. Like, subscribe, comment. Right? What is it? Is that right?
Yeah. Like, subscribe, comment.
Like, subscribe, comment.